This video is sponsored by Audible. On April 14th, Vanity Fair revealed new exclusive photos from Denis Villeneuve's upcoming adaptation of Dune, as well as some new information. Or rather, they confirmed what we've been reporting for months already. In this editorial, I will, after a brief message from our sponsor, first give my thoughts on the recently released images, and then assess how the new information fits with the exclusive scoops we released over the course of the past few months. Finally, I will address the concern that many now have. Will Dune go the same way as Terminator Dark Fate and Ghostbusters 2016, among others, have gone down before? As long-time viewers may recall, I am currently in the process of reading all the Dune books. And by reading, I actually mean listening to, because I'm all about audiobooks from Audible. The review of the chronologically first one is already up, and the review of the second one will come soon. I'm just a bit behind, because my habit was listening to the Dune audiobooks while commuting to and from work. But now I'm working from home, like everyone else. And now that I am home, is when I see just how much else Audible, this video sponsor, has to offer. You see, they don't offer just audiobooks. Audible is the world's leading provider of spoken word entertainment and educational material all around. There is obviously news updates and podcasts, but in addition to that, they have plenty of content that will help you pursue your goals, no matter what they may be. And face it, whether you want to become a better leader, a better parent, more educated on any given matter, or simply to get fit, there has never been a better time for it than right now, because you're trapped inside, so you might as well make the most out of that time. Members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus unlimited free Audible originals every month, and access to daily news digests from major newspapers, as well as guided meditation programs, which I'm sure many could use these days. You can both stream and download the content to your mobile device, whichever is your preference. So do head on over to Audible, and if you want to help this channel out while you're at it, visit the link audible.com/midnightsedge, or if you're in the US, text Midnight's Edge to 500 500. And while you browse and find the right content for you at Audible, let's continue to the Dune revelations. The first picture was actually released a day before the others, and in it we see Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, on Caladan, the ancestral homeworld of House Atreides. In a live stream I did with Mr. H Reviews, he astutely pointed out that this picture isn't so much a photo as it is a still grabbed from actual footage, which you can see from the motion blur on the background spaceships. I agree with this observation. So expect this to be in a trailer which could come out at any time now. In this still, Paul doesn't look too happy, which is likely because it depicts his entire house being forcibly uprooted from their fresh, green, and lush paradise homeworld. Next stop is the dry, hot, and sandy hell world that is Arrakis, also known as Dune. We exclusively said months ago that the Atreides' pain and sense of loss over this uprooting would be explored, and that is exactly what we see in this picture, which I like. To me at least, the landscape is beautiful, a vision of paradise. Reminds me of my homeland even. Little wonder why, because as it turns out, and what I didn't know when I first saw the picture, was that the scene in question was actually filmed in my homeland. More specifically, in Stadlandet, western coast of Norway. I wish I had known that last fall, when they actually were filming. I would have loved to have another bit part as a background extra. Be that as it may, and image background aside, I also like the Atreides uniform. Very medieval, very feudal, which is fitting, because even if the story of Dune takes place in the vicinity of 20,000 years or so into the future, theirs is a feudal society of rivaling houses, and where the elites have all the power. Then, the second batch of pictures were released in a more explorative article. In a word, I love them all. And they confirm everything Midnight's Edge exclusively said about the movie as early as December of last year. Let's dive in. As those of you who follow us for our Star Trek coverage know all too well, we sometimes hear rumors from behind the scenes of that. And on occasion, we also hear rumors from elsewhere as well, such as behind the scenes of Dune. But in a welcome change of pace, the rumors emanating from behind the scenes of Dune were all good. Let's see how the rumors we reported on measure up against the official word brought to us by Vanity Fair. First and foremost, we said that while Denis Villeneuve would do a fresh adaptation of the source material and not base his movie on any prior adaptation, he would nonetheless visually root it in the David Lynch movie, meaning you would be able to see how many of the designs in the upcoming movie evolved directly from the designs of the Lynch movie. The most immediate example of this is the still suits, which you can tell very clearly are derived from the Lynch movie. They are not directly from the source material. Still suit descriptions were pretty vague there. Case in point, the 2000 miniseries went in a completely different direction with their still suits. So these still suits are David Lynch's design redone. And I approve, because I happen to think the visuals of the Lynch movie were stunning. Secondly, we also said Liet Kynes, previously played by the late great Max von Sydow, had been gender-bent and race-swapped into a black woman, which was done to facilitate the casting of Zendaya as Janie. And these pictures confirm that. They even confirm the actress, Sharon Duncan Brewster. To be fair though, we weren't the first to make that claim. I have since learned that Bounding into Comics made it before us, so kudos, you nailed it yet again. We also said that Lady Jessica would have a greater role in the movie, and that she would be able to do, I think I used the term, some pretty wizard stuff. Now, that obviously can't be confirmed by the pictures, but in the article it says. The director has also expanded the role of Paul's mother, Lady Jessica. She's a member of the Bene Gesserit, a sect of women who can read minds, control people with their voice, again, a precursor to the Jedi mind trick, and manipulate the balance of power in the universe. In the script, which Villeneuve wrote with Eric Roth and John Spates, she is even more fearsome than before. The studio's plot synopsis describes her as a warrior priestess. As Villeneuve jokes, it's better than Space Nun. So evidently he's not quite content with that description either. But where prior reporting goes, I think we can pretty safely say that was on the money too. Finally, and this is perhaps the most important point of all, we said that in being true to the source material, many would come to the erroneous conclusion that the movie would, how shall I put it, would head down the same road that Star Wars The Last Jedi had headed down before. However, we reported that it wouldn't, not really. So let's see the official word on that, courtesy of Vanity Fair. It begins by quoting actress Rebecca Ferguson, Lady Jessica herself. She said, "Denis was very respectful of Frank's work in the book, but the quality of the arcs for much of the women have been brought up to a new level. There were some shifts he did, and they are beautifully portrayed now." Harkening back to Liet Kynes now being a black woman, the article said, "In an intriguing change to the source material, Villeneuve has also updated Dr. Liet Kynes, the leading ecologist on Arrakis and an independent power broker amid the various warring factions. Although always depicted as a white man, the character is now played by Sharon Duncan Brewster, a black woman. What Denis had stated to me was there was a lack of female characters in his cast, and he had always been very feminist, pro-women, and wanted to write the role for a woman," Duncan Brewster says. This human being manages to basically keep the peace amongst many people. Women are very good at that, so why can't Kynes be a woman? Why shouldn't Kynes be a woman? Well, okay then. Before we move on with Dune, allow me to digress for a moment, and I am going somewhere with it. Have you heard the tragedy of Edgar Rice Burroughs' A Princess of Mars? First published in 1912, it was one of the first proper space operas. It would go on to launch the Barsoom literary series. And it would, both directly and indirectly, inspire every subsequent generation of writers and filmmakers. There were numerous attempts to film it. There were even talks about a Disney animated feature way back in the 1930s, but nothing came of it. Instead, the influence of the Barsoom stories can be felt in anything from Flash Gordon to Star Wars to Avatar. When a movie adaptation was finally made in 2012, literally no expense was spared. Director Andrew Stanton was given full and total creative control, and he fully intended for the movie to revolutionize cinema and forever change the way movies were made. Because with a beloved property like this, surely nothing could go wrong. Well, something did, because the movie, titled John Carter, turned out to be one of the biggest flops and money losers for any studio of all time. The planned sequels, which were set up in the movie no less, never came to pass. Taking things even closer to home, just look at David Lynch's Dune. For all the renown and popularity of the novel, the 1984 movie was actually a flop. The year 2000 miniseries by Sci-Fi was a success, spawning a sequel in 2003 with The Children of Dune. But a third miniseries concluding the story never happened, and I know for a fact they wanted to make one. What I'm saying is that however popular the Dune source material may be, the movie is a gamble for the studio. A big gamble, and they are deeply invested. This movie is part 1 of 2. The second one won't be greenlit until they know how this one performs. But they're already deep in development of a spin-off TV series for HBO Max as well. Point is, they've got a lot riding on this, and it will be very embarrassing all around if the movie isn't a sufficiently big hit. That is the backdrop here. This movie is the furthest thing away from a sure thing, yet it needs to be a hit. To ensure it is, it's going to need all the support it can get. Not just from the fans and movie-going public, but before that, it needs support from the entirety of the entertainment media complex. They need positive press, and for that, they need all the entertainment media editors, journalists, pundits, and other opinion leaders firmly in their corner, and that is not a given. Consider The Joker. The movie was a massive hit, yes, but that only happened despite the best effort of the entertainment media complex, who by and large deemed that movie to be problematic and had no qualms about shouting it from the rooftops. See our earlier coverage for more on that. For other examples, the entertainment media weren't too supportive of Alita Battle Angel or Rambo Last Blood either, let's say. The last thing the filmmakers behind Dune wants is the kind of coverage those movies were getting, and in my opinion, that is what this article and the wording in it is all about. Because make no mistake about it, this article is a paid-for part of the movie's marketing campaign. For all we know, neither Denis Villeneuve or anyone else quoted actually said these statements credited to them out loud. This whole thing could, and in part probably was, drafted by a publicist in the studio's marketing department that probably did little more than breeze through the script. I don't blame you if you think that sounds like a stretch, and I'm not saying conclusively that is what happened here. But really, that is sometimes how it's done. Case in point, when Ivan Reitman stepped back from directing the original iteration of Ghostbusters 3, he wrote a passionate statement explaining why he did so, and he of course wished Sony good luck in making the movie. At least, that's what they wanted you to think. In the Sony hack, we learned that Sony's marketing department had in reality written the whole thing. Reitman's representatives merely had to approve of it being credited to him. Vanity Fair has no pictures of the cast in the process of giving them an interview, No video of anyone actually saying the things credited to them, so I wouldn't be surprised if, at the very least in part, we are dealing with something like that here. That this is something the studio's marketing department orchestrated to be in what many ways can be considered the first real marketing material, the information that will set the tone for the buzz and talk to follow. Consider the source. This is Vanity Fair. Ask yourself, which demographic does that appeal to? And then have a look at these statements one more time. When the article makes a point of crediting a black woman with describing director Denis Villeneuve as always having been very feminist, pro-women, and wanted to write the role for a woman, then that is by design. Just consider this. All it would take to turn the entirety of the entertainment media complex against this movie is for one publication of note to look for something to be offended over, and write a story about why Dune is problematic, because it's about a white male savior come to the rescue of the brown desert people. In my opinion, this is a deliberate attempt to pass a ideological purity test, if you will, that this very expensive movie must pass in order to gain favor with the editors and the journalists and the pundits and everyone else in the entertainment media that this movie will need for positive press and coverage later on. And then in the process, they just might have been a little bit tone deaf with regards to how the actual movie-going audience, you know, the ones that didn't go see Terminator Dark Fate or Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, will respond to the same declarations. Therefore, I would, for the time being, suggest not going too wild in interpreting the presented information. The fact of the matter remains that, elaborate wording aside, everything Vanity Fair just confirmed lines up perfectly with what we've been saying since December. To reiterate exactly what we've been saying, yes, it's true that Jessica has an elevated role, but as we said back then, the real reason for that, no matter what PR spin they may put on it, was as a means to cracking the story. Keep in mind, the novel has a complex narrative structure which makes it very difficult to translate from the written form to a visual presentation. That is why the movie-going audience back in 1984 were given a booklet describing the backstory before seeing the David Lynch version in theaters, and why it had both opening narration and inner monologue. For the extended TV version, it was decided even that wasn't enough, so they made an animated prologue as well. There will be little to none of that in the upcoming movie, and by all accounts, it will still be even more true to the novel than the Lynch movie was. The key to that is making Lady Jessica the de facto narrator, who introduces both Paul and the audience to the world of Dune through her eyes. The eyes of the Bene Gesserit, who in turn will be assessed by Paul, and not too favorably, I might add. They are disaffectionately called Bene Gesserit witches for a reason. Also, from what I've been told, neither Paul nor anyone else will be given the Luke Skywalker treatment, let's say. What I've repeatedly heard is that this will all be very true to the source material, including the handling of Lady Jessica. All the wizard stuff she does is straight from the source material. Of all the movies that are upcoming, or all projects that are in some stage of development, there are none I am looking more forward to than this one. I've only heard good things emanating from behind the scenes of Dune, and some ill-advised marketing statements aside, Vanity Fair merely confirmed what I already heard. In short, I hope and think this will be good, and I'll be sure to let you know if something changes my mind about that. For now though, let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to check out the original Dune audiobooks, or indeed any other spoken word entertainment, then head on over to audible.com/midnightsedge, or if you're in the US, text Midnight's Edge to 500 500.